Okay, let's have a look at question 2. We're going to focus on economic geography. Very importantly, we're going to focus on primary, secondary, tertiary activities, and we're going to have a look at initiatives that we do to help progress development, like the SDI, Spatial Development Initiative, that we do. And we're going to have a look at the informal sector as well. But most importantly, let's jump into the question. If we look at question 2.1, refer to the table below based on economic activities. So if we look at the table, okay, we have a look at the GDP over here, gross domestic product, and it gives us totals of the GDP that was produced in 2020 and 2021. Okay, very importantly, we can see there was an increase in the GDP, so that's excellent for the economy of South Africa. And if we look at it, just the rands and millions, and I just want to focus on the biggest contributors to the GDP. We look at services. Now, we should know this is a tertiary activity. Okay, mining is situated over there. That's a primary activity. Then we have manufacturing and construction. That's a secondary activity. As you can see, they're the biggest contributors to that GDP. And lastly, we have agriculture. That's also a primary activity. But we're going to look at the importance of each of them in a second. So our question 2.1 is multiple choice. So if we quickly look at question 2.1.1, the what of a country refers to the total value of goods and services produced by the permanent inhabitants of a country. That's the gross domestic product. So the correct answer will be B. Gross national product adds the exports that takes place as well. So it's within the country, it's gross domestic products. So the correct answer for 2.1.1 will be B. If you look at our second question, 2.1.2, South Africa's gross domestic product, the GDP, enables one to compare, okay, A, employment rates, B, economies of other countries, the standard of living, and the imports and exports. So definitely the correct answer will be B, the economies of other countries, to see how much money a country makes within its borders. Okay, now obviously our employment rates will increase if the GDP is higher. Obviously the GNP is connected with the importing and exporting of goods. And once again, once more people are employed, standard of living will improve. If we have a look at question 2.1.3, the primary economic activity that contributed the most for the GDP in 2020 and 2021. Let's quickly have a look. But let's just quickly erase a couple of them. Services is not a primary activity. Okay, utilities is not a primary activity, so we need to choose between B and D. So let's just quickly go back to our table to see which one contributed more to the GDP. So over here, we have agriculture and mining. So which one added more to the GDP? As you can see, both in 2020 as well as 2021, the mining sector did much better than the agricultural sector. As you can see, only 114 billion in comparison to 220 billion. So our correct answer will be mining. If we go back to the multiple choice questions, and the correct answer will be D. If we have a look at 2.1.4, the tertiary economic activity that contributes the most to South Africa's GDP. Now, if we quickly have a look, all of these are tertiary activities, so we need to go back to the table to see which one contributes most to the GDP. Is it going to be services, utilities, public administration, or transport? Let's just quickly have a look at our table. Okay, as we can see, utilities, 104 billion, right? Services, 10 billion. Okay, then we also look at public administration, only 369 billion. So our correct answer will be services. So going back to question 1.6, 2.1.6, 2.1.4, apologies, it's going to be services. So that's the correct answer. Now if we quickly move to our next slide. Construction is an example of a secondary activity, because what do? We process, we manufacture. So B will be the correct answer for 2.1.5. 2.1.6, the economic activity that showed a decrease from 2020 to 2021. The correct answer over there, we already looked at that. That was the agricultural sector. So that's a big worry, grade 12s, because if you look at the agricultural sector, not only does it provide food security for a country, but we also rely on it for, especially for the GNP, for exporting of our products. So that's a concern. So when agriculture goes down, we definitely look at, it might be because of natural disasters, it might be because of uncertainty, because of landform, etc. But when agriculture goes down, it means there's a movement of people from rural to urban areas. It means because there's an increase of unemployment in the rural areas and there's less food production. So that is quite worrying if we look at the statistics for 2020 and 2021. 2.1.7, the economic activity contributed the most for the secondary sector in 2021, and the correct answer over there is C, it's manufacturing. It's making, it's processing, taking the raw material and turning it into a finished product. Okay, that's what we want. Now, if you look at just a scenario, for instance, and that's the biggest problem that we have in South Africa. We have plenty of raw materials, but what do? We export them. So, for instance, like a country like China. I'm just going to use the example over here. So let's say, for instance, we are exporting steel or iron ore, right? Iron ore, for example, we're exporting it to China, we sell it for 10 Rand. Eventually, they manufacture and process that raw material, and we buy it back for 20 Rand. So the best thing for a country, if you look at well-developed countries like America, like the United Kingdom, is because there's manufacturing and processing taking place. Very important. And it adds to the GDP, creates more job and employment opportunities as well. Okay, 2.1.8, two statements below are true with respect to the sector contributions made to the South Africa's GDP. Now, if we have a look at it, the primary sector contributes the least. Yes, we looked at that, the agriculture and mining. Now, the agriculture sector might have produced less because we might experience a drought during that time, because of political uncertainty, with land reforms, etc. Mining, unfortunately, is a non-renewable resource. Okay, back in the 1970s, the gold price was very high, early 80s, because there was loads of gold available in South Africa. I mean, Johannesburg was found on the basis of the discovery of gold. So we're running out of of renewable resources. So that's a concern. So definitely our primary sector contributes the least. And if we look at it, the secondary sector contributes the least. That's completely incorrect. Okay. The quaternary sector contributes the most. If you look at that, that's also incorrect. And our tertiary sector contributes the most. That is correct. That's like services. So the correct combination will be these two. And the correct answer will be B. Match each type of the industry in the diagram below with the description. So once again, very important over here, grade 12, your concepts. Okay, if you look at these terms, know the concepts and definitions of each of them. Okay, because they describe completely something different. Okay, now if you just quickly have a look at it, the different types of industries that we have, ubiquitous industry. Okay, telecom is an example of that. Market-oriented industries. It's usually industries that's very close to the raw material, such as agriculture. Heavy industries, we've learned in settlement geography. Where do we find heavy industries? Usually on the outskirts of urban areas, on the rural urban fringe. The simple reason why is because they use a lot of land, they create a lot of pollution. Now keep in mind, heavy industries, they never switch off. Think of a power station. Okay, people rotate when they come in. First shift starts at 8 o'clock in the morning, finish at 5. Second shift starts at 5 o'clock till right through the next morning. Okay, creates a lot of pollution, needs to be close to transport networks, but most importantly, usually on the outskirts of urban areas, because they need an abundance of flat land and they need cheaper land because it's too expensive. But besides that, the amount of pollution that's created, it's not good for the environment, especially in urban areas. Bridge industries, we're going to have a look at that now. Raw material orientated industries. Light industries usually we find very close to the CBD, usually in the zone of DK, transition zone. And then we have footloose industries, which we will discuss in a second. Now, if you look at quickly 2.2.1, located close to the customers, that will be a market-orientated industry. Okay, to be able to sell their goods or their services to the customers. So we can erase that one right over there. If we look at 2.2.2, the availability of different modes of transport is important. That will be bridge industries. Okay. For instance, keep in mind, they haven't used this one, but a break of bulk point, Durban, is a brilliant example of a break of bulk point, is when goods arrive in one form of transport and leave in another. So they arrive by shipment on ships, freight ships, and eventually goes into trains or trucks and getting transported somewhere else. If we look at 2.2.3, 2.2.3 needs large amounts of flat land on the outskirts of build-up areas. So these build-up areas we can mention is urban areas, and like I've mentioned before, that's our heavy industries. Okay, 2.2.4, location is not determined by any specific factors. That will be our footloose industries. That's, for instance, like NTN or like Vodacom. They can be anywhere situated. 2.2.5, located in build-up areas as there's little air or noise pollution. That will be our light industries, usually in a transition zone. Okay. Can be textile industries, just giving you some examples over here. Textiles, it can be bakeries, and it can even be like panel beating shop. Okay, 2.2.6, location is determined by bulky unprocessed materials. Okay, so when we look at these unprocessed materials, we can also say raw materials, because it still needs to be processed to get in its final production, okay, or when it's delivered to the consumer. So that will be raw material orientated. Industries. And last but not least, telecom is an example of this type of industry. It's everywhere, so you be cautious industry. Okay, that's the short questions. Now let's quickly focus on the longer type of questions. And if you look at 2.3, it focuses on food security. Okay, once again, food security, especially when we had to deal with the primary sector. the primary sector not only is it important to provide employment opportunities, but it provides food securities to a country. Okay, instead of importing food, we can produce our own food. Now, it's a real concern. Food security means you have a nutritious meal on a daily basis. Okay, insecurity means that you don't have that nutritious meals every day. Okay, and people will go hungry. Now, if you quickly have a look at food security in South Africa, just data that's been collected, as you can see, 23.6% of South Africans were affected by severe food insecurity. Now, this is a very interesting statistic, 23.6. Now, if you can remember correctly, what happened during 2020 and 2021? We experienced the pandemic, the coronavirus. Obviously, it had a massive impact on food security in South Africa. You can remember that harsh lockdown that we had. Just imagine that, right? We would not be able to sell, import, export any food. People were not allowed to work. So definitely it's going to have an impact on food security. Besides for that, right, people couldn't go to work. A lot of people became unemployed because of this pandemic, because of the lockdowns. So it means they couldn't afford to buy food. So that's the reason, if you look at the data that has been collected, and the reason why we had 23.6% of people that experienced food insecurity during that period. Now, if you look at Statistics SA, has been working on improving its measurement of food security and introduced the Food Insecurity Experience Scale. Okay, so it's globally, we see it globally taking place. And what do? We compare it across with different countries. Now, like I've mentioned as well, health pandemics such as COVID-19 has denied many South Africans their right to adequate food. Okay, just want to underline the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, as you can see, and eventually this has led to the National Development Goal for zero hunger by 2030. So the purpose is there so that we don't experience food insecurity by the year 2030 anymore. Okay, so that we can produce enough food so everyone has nutritious meals on every single day. Okay, let's have a look at the questions that's being asked regarding this case study. Define the term or the concept food security. Okay, when nutritious food is accessible to everyone in the country. (2.3.2) What percentage of South Africans experience food insecurity? I've underlined it in the case study. The correct answer was in the case study, it was 23.6%. What is the importance of the food insecurity experience scale according to the extract? Obviously, they want to do a comparison with different countries. Relating to food insecurity. (2.3.4) suggests how health pandemics such as COVID-19 led to food insecurity in South Africa. I've mentioned a couple of minutes ago. Obviously, unemployment increased. People can't afford food. Okay, people were unable to work because of the lockdown. such a terrible time. Just imagine. Okay, and obviously the food industries couldn't deliver food. Because of less people working and because of the lockdowns that we experienced. 2.3.5, in a paragraph, 8 lines, experience how the South African government can assist farmers in achieving zero hunger. So the purpose of this question is, how are we going to eliminate food insecurity in this country by the year 2013? Okay, first and foremost, we need the government to work with us. Government, okay, government gives funds, to increase productivity. Let me just add that there, to increase productivity. Okay, definitely technical support as well to young and upcoming farmers. Okay, encourage subsistence farming. And commercial farming. Okay, let's just quickly differentiate between the two of them. Subsistence farming is farming for yourself. Okay, so you don't focus on a specific type of crop, okay, or live breed species. So you can farm with everything. Okay, it's just farming for yourself, right? Providing for you and your family. It's usually like communal farming. Commercial farming is there to make a profit. Okay, massive crop farming, cattle farming, livestock farming. Okay, is there to sell to the public. But if you look at subsistence farming, it's just farming for yourself and your needs alone. Okay, that's the difference between those two. And we can have a look at the last one, land reform projects should become a priority. Okay, and lastly, I just want to add this to it, incentivize the farmers. Okay, 2.4, refer to the infographic below based on gold production in South Africa between 1970 and 2020. Okay, first and foremost, if we look at gold, we know it's mining and it's a primary activity. Okay, now if you just quickly look at the case study that's been given to us over here, we've been provided with a graph. South Africa was one of the world's largest producers of gold as only 50 years ago. South Africa produced more than 1,000 tons of gold per year. Okay, gold production peaked in 1970, so that's 50 years ago. Right, since then, falling steadily and sharply. Now, the biggest concerns, obviously, is labor issues that we experience, strike actions, and it reduced gold production. The nearly 80% fall in South African gold production has led to it being overtaken by China, Australia, United States. Okay, so they produce more than us. Now, as you can see at this graph, obviously there's a timeline from 1960 up to the year 2020, right? We can see that the tons produced has decreased steadily over the years. Can we quickly cut there? Yeah, just cut from here. I just wanted, that's it. Someone is phoning me erratically. Sorry about it. Sorry. Hi, Kerry, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, but I'm not sure if it's on this side or around the corner.
No, it's in 20 Oban. That's Pitcairn. Let me just quickly ask my wife to come out, okay?
Okay,
Thank you, bye-bye. Guys, says nog buite. It says buite, Vanessa.
Well, okay,
Hey, boy.
bye.
Sorry about that, Becky. Okay. Okay, if we have a look at this table over here, the comparison of gold production per tons, as you can see, South Africa was leading all the way in 1970, like we've mentioned, 1,000 tons a year, and in year 2020, only 101 ton. Now, as you can see, China's production or producing gold has increased over the years, same as with Russia, Australia and the United States. We can see that Australia produces the most coal. No, I'm lying. China is producing the most coal currently in the world. Now let's have a look at the questions being asked regarding this case study that was given to us. According to the graph, state the trend in South Africa's gold production from 1970 to 2020. Obviously, it's been decreasing, so that's the correct answer. How many tons of gold did South Africa produce in 2020 according to the table? Let's just have a look at this table. We only produced a mere 101 tons. Okay. 2.4.3. According to the table, which country was the leading coal producer in 2020? We looked at that earlier, and it was China, with 330. State two physical factors that favored South Africa as the leading producer of gold in 1970. Okay. The reason, physical factors. Okay, so we don't need to look at social factors because there's many people around and that. Physical factors, we need to look at the topography of it. Okay. First and foremost, we can write down there the Witwatersrand area, Gauteng area, had large gold reef deposits. Okay, and what made it easier, these deposits was close to the surface. So it made it cheaper to mine. And lastly, these gold reserves was of a high quality. (2.4.5) suggests two factors that result in the reduction of gold production from 1990 to 2020. Now they've mentioned in the article strikes, labor unrest, and we can also mention disputes on salaries and that. They wanted increases. And there was a decrease in foreign investment. And last but not least, we're still experiencing them as load shedding Okay, we can't mine without electricity. So the productivity will decrease. Now, if you look at 2.4.6, explain how a reduction in South Africa's gold production will have a negatively impact on the economic growth. Now, first and foremost, less gold that's being produced means unemployment will rise. Okay, also means with less employed workers, there will be less taxes to collect. Okay, so when there's less taxes that's being collected, it means slower development, because the government lacks money to create new development initiatives. Okay, we can also mention some mines might close. Because of the decrease in the GDP. And we can mention the multiplier effect. Almost very similar to rural-urban migration. So when these mines do close, remember the multiplier effect. Remember, when these mines open, schools are going to open, restaurants are going to open, okay, service delivery is going to open, like for instance car garages, etc., supermarkets. Now when these people become unemployed because the mines are closing, what's going to happen with these services that was provided initially for the people moving there because of the mining industry? Okay, so that's the multiplier effects, right? Obviously it's going to lead to people migrating to different areas, and you need consumers in your business to add to be profitable. Okay, that's the multiplier effect. So that's question 2.4.6. Now, if we have a look at our next question, and what we're focusing on over here, we focus on the IDZ. What does it stand for? Industrial Development Zone. It's creating industrial areas, because when we look at industrial areas, we look at manufacturing and we look at processing of raw materials. So what we do is with the raw materials, we process it, we manufacture it so we can sell it for a higher price. Okay, so the importance of an industrial development zone, it creates employment opportunities. It creates opportunities to export products, to gain more GNP, okay, to gain more in the GDP, to earn foreign income. Now, if we quickly have a look at the Dube trade port, okay, it's the largest greenfield airport development in Africa, right? As you can see, it's 38 square kilometers. It's roughly 30 kilometers north of Durban. Okay, so it's to the side of Umhlanga, moving north, Belito site, 45 kilometers away from the busiest cargo port in Africa. So already you can see we're dealing with imports and exporting. Okay, we have different business zones. We've got a trade zone, we've got a cargo zone, we've got an agri zone that deals with agricultural products. And then we got Dube iConnect and the Dube City. So that's where we have services. We got retail areas in that Dube City. Okay. Now, over here, as you can see, just an advertisement to attract investment. You know, it's to get more customers. As you can see, it's only a 30-minute drive from Durban CBD. As you can see, very close to Umhlanga and Belito. 16,527 direct employment opportunities since 2007. Very close to Shaka Airport for international investors. As you can see, generate a lot of electricity through solar panels, so it's green, revolutionary, and as you can see, charity-wise, 3,500 learners benefit from the CSI program. Now, as you can see, it's a great initiative, creating a lot of advantages for different sectors. Okay, so we want more of these initiatives to create more employment opportunities and to create awareness for investors to come and invest in South Africa. Let's have a look at the questions that's being asked. What is an industrial development zone? Okay, it focuses on industrial development. To create jobs. And promotes exports. Okay, 2.5.2, what transport infrastructure make the Dube Transport's IDZ unique compared to other IDZs in South Africa according to the fact file? Okay, it's the largest greenfield airport development. Look at question 2.5.3. State two factors on the map that resulted in the greater accessibility to the Dube Trade Port IDZ. Okay, we've looked at it. It's very close to the harbour for exporting, and it's very close to King Shaka Airport. As well as the N2 that's just situated a mere couple of minutes from Durban. Look at question 2.5.4. Describe two advantages regarding the infrastructure that the Dube Trade Port IDZ could offer to attract industries. So what that means to attract industries, they want investors to come and invest, to come and open their own retail businesses over there, to come and do businesses with this development initiative, okay, to grow this Dube Transport STI. And what they can do is to improve telecommunication networks and definitely that will attract investors is the renewable energy. I mean, there's access to power supply, so load shedding is not going to be a problem. And obviously because it's close to the ocean, and if we look at Durban, right, we know we experience high summer rainfall, so water is always going to be accessible. Okay. Explain how the Dube Trade Port IDZ will upskill, improve labour in the province. Okay, first and foremost, it can lead to skilled labour sets. Okay, so we're going to have more people that's going to be qualified to be able to do jobs in this development initiative. So it might take, for instance, graduation programs that might lead to employment opportunities a little bit later. So skilled labor is going to increase. Okay, and we can also mention that the success will lead to more permanent labor skills and it will create a brain gain. So it will attract qualified people to go and work at the Dube IDZ.